Well, welcome to Nazing Church on a cold February morning, the 7th of February. Blimey, it's freezing. It's -1 and I know it's getting colder out there. So I'm well wrapped up in here, and sometimes I think we must all be suffering from a fit of collective madness to be sitting in these freezing places, but we do, we gather. And there's a reason why we gather here in these beautiful ancient churches, because we get a huge amount of joy out of it. Today I want to talk about wisdom. Look at this. There's a pattern and order to it, isn't there? Incidentally, the shell is also the symbol of Nazing, of the Nazing pilgrim. Here again, there's a fabulous order in creation. We see it in so many things, in the pattern of a sunflower, in the ordering of a pine cone, that natural divine pattern in things. Just listen to these words from Proverbs. Does not wisdom call? Does not understanding raise her voice? The Lord created me at the beginning of his work, the first of his acts, long ago. When he marked out the foundations of the earth, then I was beside him, like a master worker, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing before him always, rejoicing in his inhabited world and delighting in the human race. It talks about wisdom. It's an ancient piece of wisdom literature dating back millennia. And this wisdom has come through all sorts of religious traditions, not just the Christian tradition. And it talks about wisdom, this fellow worker at God's creation, beside him as a woman, a womanly figure, helping to shape and order that creation. And then here, these words from Colossians. Christ is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For in him all things in heaven and on earth were created, things visible and invisible. And it goes on to say, for in him all the fullness of God was pleased to dwell. And then in Colossians, we hear this sense of order and pattern being attached to Christ by his followers. And the opening of John's Gospel. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. And it goes on to say, and the Word became flesh and lived among us, and we have seen his glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. There's a grace and there's an order and there's a pattern to that wisdom which we see throughout all things. And it gives us hope. This world isn't chaotic. Despite the difficulties that we're all facing at this time, despite the challenges, despite the hardness, there is an order, there is a purpose, there is a pattern. And you've got to remember that those people lived with Jesus. They ate with him, they toured with him, they saw his acts of healing, his miracles at first hand. They were taught by him daily. They were part of his life. And after the time that they spent with him, They wrote these words. In Jesus, they saw this same pattern and order. The order that we see in God's creation. They saw that in Jesus' life. But they were lucky. They saw Jesus in the flesh. How do we reach him today? How do we see him? How do we know him? We have to turn on our spiritual antenna, which we do through prayer. Explains the fairly bonkers act of coming into a stone-cold church, lighting a candle and praying. You can do it anywhere. You don't have to do it in church. But actually, coming here to this place where since the 12th century countless feet have walked, countless people have sat in prayer and quiet contemplation, seeking that same pattern and order, gives an enormous sense of continuity, that we are joining in with that pattern which has been passed down since Jesus' first disciples noticed the pattern in him. And since even earlier, human beings started noticing the divine pattern in their world about them and started writing words about wisdom. After Jesus died and after his resurrection, he appeared to his disciples. But one of them wasn't there, Thomas. And he said, unless I can see him, unless I can put my hands in his wounds, I won't believe. And the next week, sure enough, he was there. And Jesus appeared again and said, touch me. Look at my hands and my side. I'm flesh and blood, not a ghost. And Jesus said then, when Thomas proclaimed him, have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have come to believe. We are the ones who have to come to believe by seeing inwardly, not in the flesh. That's the way we come to know that truth and reality of Jesus Christ in our lives. And in times when our world seems so disordered and out of joint, that's the place we need to go and look. I hope you can find that pattern and order in your own life, as I do in mine. Amen.